everybody, Zach again, NewTutorial.com, coming in making a video for you today. We are going to talk about training up a fighter. Now, I've done videos. It seems like I've done a lot of videos on kids lately, and maybe that's because I'm a single dad, and I have two boys, 14 and 8, and so it's something that's very pressing on my mind all the time. But also because I get a lot of comments from a lot of you guys, either on this channel or the other one, saying, they're worried about their kids, or they're having issues with the school system, and they see that all of the stuff and nonsense that's out there, and what are they going to do? And I understand that that's a struggle. It's a huge struggle. And so I saw an article this week. I'm on the email list for the HSLDA. I guess it's the Homeschool Legal Defense Fund or something like that. And I get their emails periodically. And so, because I want to stay up to date on what's going on legally with the homeschool community around the country. And I did videos before in the past where talking about, and I think it was on the other channel, about how with this pandemic, so many of the people have switched over to homeschool, even temporarily, and it was overwhelmingly that the parents liked this better than the public school. And a lot of that was because they had, for the first time in their entire lives, since their children have been in school, they saw the curriculum that their kids were learning, and they were like, "Oh, this is horrible. My kids aren't going to excel when they're learning this garbage." And so many of them, much of it, I think it was a good, 50, 60% who are like, they really wanted to maybe change gears and switch over to a homeschool, full-time for their kids. Now, I don't think that's practical for everybody. I think that's going to be hard and tough for a lot of people. But even if it's a small fraction, a small percentage of that actually from this pandemic begin to homeschool, the public school systems, the government indoctrination centers that we call the public school system today, is in deep trouble. They're in big trouble, okay, financially. Because, see, when you take kids out of the classroom of the public school, they lose tax dollars. Let me show you the article. The HSLDA, public school gives homeschooler A's and truancy charges? ? An HSLDA member family in Duval County, Florida was more than surprised when an official showed up alleging that their son was truant from Atlantic Coast High School. According to the guidance counselor, their son had not attended a day of classes since the beginning of the school year. The confused counselor also produced a report card that indicated their son was enrolled in and failing subjects including basketball, environmental science, Algebra 1, American Sign Language, and English 1. The teen had, however, apparently earned an A in the first semester exams for world history and sculpture. The parents were not amused. They had been legally homeschooling their son his entire life, the previous 6 years in Duval County. When they submitted their son's annual home education evaluation before fall 2020, the parents confirmed their intent to continue homeschooling for the 2021 school year. They did this even though it is not required by state law. Troubled that their son had been enrolled into the local public high school without their knowledge or consent, the family immediately called Homeschool Legal Defense Association for guidance. They also reported the case to several local and state agencies as potential education fraud. I spoke to the family and discovered that their son was one of several homeschool students who had been auto-enrolled last fall in the Duval Public Schools online program. Okay, so we can keep reading this. You really don't need to, but the reality is, here's the deal. Here's the key right there. Educational fraud. And with so many of these schools losing students to homeschoolers, to parents who would rather homeschool, or to parents who've been homeschooling, all along, like in this case, they're trying to figure out ways to continue to get their tax dollars. However, they forgot to, dot some I's and cross some T's by making the fraud complete by not allowing the truancy, authorities to reach out to this family who was never supposed to be there in the first place, allowing the fraud to be complete. So I think you can see what may be going on here. I think that this is possible. It's very possible, in fact. I think it's very possible this is happening on a larger scale in a lot of other places, in a lot of other public school systems, because they know they're losing money. And they're trying to recoup those dollars. And so what they'll do, they'll fraudulently, because they have a list. And in the state of Arkansas, where I live, you must submit an intent to homeschool. We do this every year. So they have a list of kids who aren't in their school. They used to require mandatory testing in this state, but it was so embarrassing one way that they actually turned, the school teachers were like, we must have mandatory testing for these homeschoolers because we can show them just how horrible of a job they're doing. Well, it was lopsided so much. Like the homeschoolers were so making the public school kids look so bad in their test scores. They were like, you know what, that requirement for testing, let's just get rid of that. Let's just make that go away. So, but they have a list of your kids. And so what's to stop them from enrolling them, automatically without you knowing it, just so they can continue to get the money from the federal government? See, this is something that's very important to me because I see what is the logical conclusion to all this? In 1960, you had Madalyn Murray O'Hair. Madalyn Murray O'Hair, she was an atheist, and she desperately wanted to get the Bible curriculums and Bible anything out of schools, and she went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in her favor, and the Bible was then starting to be taken out of school curriculums, out of school teachings, everything. And we have what we have today, an entire nation with almost no moral compass. Zip. Nada. Zilch. Niet. Nothing. There's no moral compass in this country. And so, Madalyn Murray O'Hair, by the way, who was killed later on by another atheist. Because see, when you have no moral compass, these people will eventually eat themselves. And we're seeing an entire nation right now with the love growing cold because everyone is eating themselves. That's the logical conclusion that you will come to, when you put this into perspective. When in doubt, zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And that's what we have. We have an entire nation with no moral compass. And so instead of, in the 1960s, before Madalyn Murray O'Hair took this case to the Supreme Court, we had a nation that went to school and learned the Ten Commandments. They learned that you should love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? These things, which are core principles of biblical instruction, have been taken away. But see, they learned these things. Now, you have a public school system that doesn't teach the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not steal, but instead, they're teaching the exact opposite by setting the example, their own example of stealing from people who are not enrolled in their system. Do you see how that works? You have taken a system that used to teach. One day they taught that you should not steal because it's in the Bible. You shouldn't steal. You should treat everyone like it was yourself. The golden rule, right? Treat others as you'd like to be treated. Love your neighbor as yourself. But no. Now, we're not going to teach you it's not wrong to steal anymore. No. In fact, now we're going to teach you by our example that it's okay to steal because we need your money. Do you see how that works? See how we've completely flipped? So it was asked on my channel this week on how to train up our children. Is it okay, Zach, for us to have our kids still enrolled in Awana? Is it okay to still go to the Christian schools, the Christian academies that are out there? I heard from a young man just recently that the Christian academies, at least this one that he was referring to, the one he attended, they're now teaching LGBTQ stuff and all the insanity that's there. It's not even a Christian school anymore. I know that the Christian university or Christian college that my wife went to in California, they're still called the Christian Liberal Arts College, but they are all liberal, no Christian. I get their newsletters, and so, asking for money, from the alumni. And they are not Christian anymore. Not by the biblical standard that we knew, 40, 50 years ago. They're not. They're absolutely not. Love is growing cold. So is it okay to keep your kids into Awana or into some sort of Christian academy? I don't know. You're going to have to decide that for yourself. You better be teaching foundational, scriptural foundations at home, along with whatever they're getting at school so that they can withstand the onslaught or the possible onslaught that they may be getting, the skewed biblical perspective that they may be getting at Awana or at their local church or at, the Christian, school that they go to, academy, private school, if that's what you're doing. You better have that foundation, and you better be shoring up that foundation right now in these days we're living in, because the enemy is just pummeling it with battering rams. And it's sad. I've talked before in my Greater Exodus series. I may be talking about that soon in an upcoming conference about a boat. And the way I see it, when you raise up children, it's like a boat. A boat, raising up a child is like building a boat. You build the boat and you have the hull, you have the structure of the boat, Its purpose is to displace water and to float above the water. And then you have the mast and the rudder that's installed, and that's to give it direction. And the mother is what gives, in my opinion, the child the ability to float, to be able to displace water, to stay afloat and not sink. It's the father's position to give direction, to give the rudder, to give the sail. And I have met a lot of people, in today's society, we have everyone ridicules the father. The societal norms are to ridicule the father, make fun of the father, get rid of the father. Women, you don't even need a father figure in your home. And we have a whole bunch of children who are without rudders and without sails and just floating around aimlessly out there on the water. I've seen it. I had a friend who was, here amongst the Torah community who was raised without a father. And I saw what it's done with his life. He had no direction. He was always willy-nilly this or willy-nilly that. And he just went so far astray. And it's because he had no rudder. He had no sail. He had no father. A boat was built for the ocean. A boat is safest in the harbor, but that's not the reason or the purpose for which it was built. A boat is safest in the harbor. I don't know who's the author who said that. I'm not sure. You'll have to look it up. A boat is safest in the harbor, but that's not the purpose for which it was built. You need to train your children so that you one day can send them out. And if you're sending your kids to the public school systems or even some of these Christian academies or programs that are out there, look out, because they're teaching now sometimes the exact opposite of what the Bible teaches. And they're calling it good and wholesome. And that's what struck me when I saw this article this last week. I just could not believe it. We've gone from thou shalt not steal to watch our example of how to steal. It's mind-blowing. Guys, listen, coming up, I have a conference coming up this weekend. It's going to be May 22nd, 23rd, Saturday, Sunday, Shabbat, and first day. We will be at Stoney Creek Hotel and Conference Center in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Information is in the details below if you want information on that. Also, here's some other conferences, including that one. Also, I didn't think I was going to promote the one that's coming up on June 20th. June 20th, there's going to be a venue. All the information is right there on the screen. I think it starts at 10:30. And it's a potluck. Bring a clean dish. That's going to be in Northwest Arkansas. Information is right there, and you can where the venue is. You can Google where that. It's a wedding venue, or wedding barn, or some kind of event. If you Google it, you'll find the directions to that location. It starts at 10:30 on June 20th. Also, we have the Mulberry Mountain Conference coming up, and also the Homesteading Conference coming up. So a lot of stuff going on right now here in the Ozarks. And so be sure, if you're in the area, check this one out. But hopefully I'll be able to see you this weekend coming up in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma at the Stoney Creek Hotel and Conference Center. That's going to be a fun time. I got a lot of cool stuff we're going to talk. I'm going to be speaking 3 times, and I got a lot of great stuff on my plate that we're going to be able to discuss. So I'm really looking forward to that. So check it out if you can, and if not, you have a bunch of other opportunities where you can check in and see some other great speakers. It's going to be at the at the June 20th event. Steve Moutry is going to be there with me, and then one other person, I can't remember the name, sorry. And then on the Mulberry Mountain Conference, you're going to have Rico Cortez and I can't remember her name. Christy Jordan. Christy Jordan will be there. So formerly of Southern Plate, if you ever check out that website for great recipes. I know Christy and her husband, they're a great couple. So check that out as well. You don't want to miss that at the Mulberry Mountain Conference. So, all right, we'll leave it at that. Wow, the world's a mess. Keep your eyes open. Keep your radar up. Watch out for the enemy, because he's coming for you guys. All right, love y'all. Go home. Read your Bible. Thanks.